In this session, we're going to look at the list of clients that any particular user might have visibility to and might be working with on a relatively frequent basis, such as entering assessment data or looking at maybe previous assessment data for any particular client. So in order to get to this list, what we do is we click on the blue Data Portal button. Now this brings up a full list of all the clients that the user has visibility to. Now the size of this list and the number of clients in this list is going to depend on what particular accesses the user might have, and also what particular reporting unit or organizational unit the user may be placed in. So in this example, my user, Marian Oshinsky, is a super user and has visibility to just about every, if not every, client in the system. Other users, such as clinicians, will probably have a considerably shorter list, on the order of 10 users perhaps, or 20 perhaps. So in this list, what we can do is we see the list of clients, and if we wanted to see the list of assessments for a particular client, we simply select the client, we mouse over and select the client. So in this case, I'm going to select Braxton Abbott and just click on the row, and we can see the list of assessments for Braxton. Now, in order to return to the previous list of assessments, there's two ways to go about it. Either you can come up to the top navigation bar, click on Clients, and click on List, or you can simply use the back button in your browser. And clicking back, again, brings up the full list. Now, if we wanted to select another client, let's select Roderick Abbott, for example. Click on him on his row again, and it brings up a different list of assessments. And so again, I'm going to click on the back button, and it brings up the full list of assessments. Now, in order to scroll through the list of assessments, we simply just scroll down, and what you can see at the bottom of the list is every time we scroll down to the bottom, we see a loading more at the bottom of the list, and then we see more clients appear at the bottom of the list here. So essentially what this is an infinite scroll, and if we just kept scrolling down, eventually we would exhaust the entire list of clients and see all of them in a big scrollable window. Now this is, again, for this user and a super user, this is would be a fairly unwieldy number of clients to work with. We can see just from scrolling through the first 20 or 30 or so, we're only at Abernathy. So if we were looking for a particular client whose last name started with an S or a T, for example, we can see that we would be scrolling for quite some time before we came to any of those clients. So how to work with this list of clients? Well, there's a number of ways, and the easiest way is up here at the top. We can see that it is instructing us to just start typing a last name, and if we just start typing on the keyboard without having to click anywhere or say I want to search for a particular client, if you just start typing on your keyboard and we'll type ST, and we can see that the system is automatically going to well, let's choose, I'll tell you what, we'll choose SMITH, for example. And what it does is it brings up then all the people whose name contains Smith, and this is not necessarily a starts with or ends with or anything like that. It's a contains. So in this case, most of our names contain only Smith, and so we see all the Smiths in the system. And again, if we start scrolling, the infinite scroll is at the bottom, but eventually we would come to the end of the list. And you can see here we even have a few clients named Smitham, again showing that that the filter is for a contains on the name and not necessarily just a last name equals. So again, if we type delete and get rid of the last name, then the full client list comes back up. Now there's another way to find clients, and that's by using some of the filtering options that are available on the client list. And so how to use the filter? Well, we come up here and click on the Show Filter button, and what that does is open up a list of fields on which we can filter the client list. And so we're going to look at a few fields here in this filter, and let's start with the first one. We're just going to look at, we want to filter by the client identifier. So similarly to what we saw earlier with the last name Smith, except in this instance we have to actually click on the field and start typing. Now I'm going to type 9CI as part of my client identifier, and again, all the filters work on a contains basis rather than a strict equality. So if we come down here and look at Alexis Abbott, our first client, we can see that her identifier begins with 9CI, and so that's where we've gotten the 9CI up here to type. And what you do once you're satisfied that this is part of the client identifier that we want to search for, we can come over here and click Filter. And it brings up all the clients who have a 9CI in the identifier. And in this case we see capital C, capital I, so it's not case sensitive. We can see down here this one ends with 9CI. So these are all the clients in the system who contain 9CI. Now if you knew the full client identifier and didn't want to bother with the contains, you could just type it, and we're going to type in Alexis Abbott's identifier exactly this time. And we can see that it brings up only Alexis Abbott. Now, in order to remove the filtering, there's a couple ways we can do it. We can strictly just come in here and delete, say filter. Now it brings up everybody because we're not filtering on anybody. Or we can simply just say clear, which would clear all the fields from the filter and then show us our entire client list again. So let's open up the filter one more time, and we're going to search on organizational unit. And what this is going to find us is everybody who is placed in a particular organizational unit. And the organizational unit we are interested in is, so you see it opens up, and it opens up the organizational unit tree. All we do is click on the plus in order to expand. And if there are no more expansions available for a particular organizational unit, then it just shows you a small house icon indicating this is the org unit that you may be interested in. So we're interested in Sangamon County here, and what we do is we simply do a click and drag over to the text box up here and add it. Now here are all the organizational units that we are going to filter on. So once we've selected the ones we're satisfied with, come over here, click Apply, and then once again click on the Filter button. And we notice every time we have a value in the filter and we are filtering on something, the Show Filter button will be green, indicating that there's some value in there that you are filtering on, and that this is not just an unfiltered list. So we've filtered on that particular organizational unit, and it doesn't show it here on the clients list, but if we were to select a client or two, and let's just select right here, we can see here's Braxton Abbott again, and what we see is he has a few assessments that were done in Sangamon County. And let's click the back button again to come back to the filtered list. Click on Dwayne Abbott. And we can see, again, he has a few assessments that were done in that organizational unit, indicating that he was, in fact, placed there. Now, the thing about hitting the back button when you have a filter selected, or had a filter selected previously, is that if you hit the back button, the filter still remains enabled. So if you have a particular filter where you had maybe a couple of fields filled in and you didn't want to always have to open up the filter and enter those fields again, simply clicking the back button from your assessment list to come back to will bring you back to your filtered list of clients. So let's clear this filter. That brings us up again to the full list of clients. And now again, let's say we have a fairly long list here, and let's say that there are a couple of clients maybe that we work with very, very frequently, or if our user happened to be a clinician, maybe there's 5 clients that maybe we're working with on a daily basis or a pretty frequent basis, and we don't always want to have to necessarily go through the exercise of filtering through a long client list in order to find these clients. So what we can do is we can add them to what's called the workload. And what the workload is, it's a specific list per client of just discretionary clients that you can add. so that if you were to come up to clients and select workload, then in here you would see only those clients that you have chosen to add to your workload. Now right now we don't have any in the workload, so it tells us no data found, but let's add a few clients. So we're going to add Braxton Abbott, so we select Braxton by clicking on the checkbox, and let's also add Broderick Abbott. And what we do then is we come down and we click on the Add to Workload button. Message up here indicating clients have been added to workload. Come up and go to the workload, and we can see here's Braxton Abbott and Broderick Abbott. Now, you would interact with these clients exactly the same way you would have interacted back on the full clients list. If you click on the client, it'll bring you to his assessments list. Clicking the back button brings you back to your workload. If you wanted to remove one of these clients, simply select the client with the checkbox, come down, click on Remove from Workload. Message tells you the client has been removed from the workload.